I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, writing this, admitting what I've done. It's a little embarrassing, honestly. I didn't plan for any of it. But I think it's time I talk about it, because the guilt has been eating me alive for too long, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there will understand. It all started with something small. A few months ago, my husband Matt and I were going through one of those phases. You know, the kind where you're just so comfortable in the relationship that you forget what it was like to really want each other. It wasn't like we were fighting or anything. It was just, I don't know, monotonous. We were stuck in a routine, and I think, deep down, I started to feel like I wanted more. More excitement, more attention, more anything. I know. This is where people usually say, talk to your partner. But it didn't happen that way. I didn't talk. Instead, I started noticing other people more. One person in particular, our neighbor, Chris. He's a little younger than Matt, and he has this whole, I don't know, charisma. He always seemed so confident, so full of life. He made me laugh in ways Matt didn't anymore, and we had these long, effortless conversations when we bumped into each other. At first, I thought it was just friendly banter, but it started to feel different. He noticed me, really noticed me, and that felt good. I hadn't felt that in a long time. Matt's always been a good husband. He works hard, he's kind, he's reliable. But we both got so used to each other that it was easy to forget about the spark. Chris, though, had a way of making me feel alive. It wasn't like I was looking for anything to happen. I'm not that type of person, or at least I didn't think I was. But it just sort of happened. There was one particular afternoon that stands out. Matt was working late, and I had just finished a long day at home. I was outside watering the garden when Chris came over, asking if I needed any help with the yard. I told him I was fine, but he insisted. I appreciated it. He didn't have to, but he always seemed eager to lend a hand. We started talking about random things. Work, the weather, just whatever came up. But then things changed. It wasn't like he was flirting outright, but the way he looked at me, the way he smiled, it felt different. It felt personal. Your garden looks amazing, Chris said, leaning in a little closer. Thanks. I've been working on it. It's kinda my thing. I replied, trying to act casual, but I could feel my heart start to race. He smiled again, and his eyes lingered on me in a way that sent a shiver down my spine. You've always had good taste, even when we were kids, he said, and I could tell he wasn't just talking about the flowers. My mind raced. Was he flirting with me? Did I want him to? I tried to push the thought away, but there was something in his gaze that made it impossible to ignore. I thought about Matt. I thought about how we'd been drifting. How things weren't the same between us. It wasn't that I didn't love him, but I don't know. Maybe it was just a craving for something different. Maybe it was just an escape from the ordinary. We kept talking, and the conversation slowly shifted. We moved inside when it got too hot outside, and we ended up sitting on the couch in my living room. Chris made himself comfortable and we talked more. About memories from high school, about our lives now. It felt so easy. Then, without thinking, I touched his arm. It was an innocent gesture, really. But it was enough to make the air between us crackle. I looked at him, and he looked back. And before I knew it, we were kissing. It wasn't a slow build up. It was instant, desperate. I'd never kissed anyone like that before, especially not someone who wasn't Matt. But it felt like a floodgate had opened inside me, and everything I'd been holding back came rushing out. It was a mistake. I know that now. But in that moment, it didn't feel like one. It felt like something I had been craving, something that I didn't realize I needed until it was happening. The kiss lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like time had stopped. When we finally pulled away, both of us were breathless. I couldn't look at him at first, but when I did, I saw the same confusion and desire in his eyes. What are we doing? I asked, my voice trembling. Chris just looked at me for a moment, as if weighing the words in his mind. I don't know, he said softly. But it feels right. And for a moment, it did. It felt like something I had been missing for so long. But then reality set in. I pulled away quickly, a rush of guilt and panic flooding through me. I shouldn't. I muttered, standing up and pacing around the room. Chris stayed where he was, watching me with a quiet intensity. He didn't push me, didn't try to convince me to stay. But I could tell that he was disappointed. And maybe I was, too. I didn't know what I was doing. But I did know one thing: I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. The days that followed that afternoon with Chris were confusing, to say the least. I knew I had crossed a line, and I didn't feel good about it. But I also couldn't shake off the feeling that I wanted more. It was like something had awakened inside me, something I didn't even know I'd been missing. But then there was Matt. Matt, my husband. The man I had built my life with. How could I be so stupid? He hadn't done anything wrong. He was still the same caring, responsible man he had always been. Yet, for some reason, I felt like I wasn't enough for him anymore. Or maybe he wasn't enough for me. That thought haunted me, gnawing at my insides every time I looked at him. I didn't tell Matt about what happened with Chris, obviously. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling yet, and I didn't want to hurt him. But the guilt was eating me alive. Every time I saw Matt, I couldn't look him in the eyes the same way. And Chris? Well, he was always around. We'd run into each other occasionally, usually when Matt was out of the house. He didn't say much about that afternoon, but we both knew what had happened. And every time our eyes met, there was this unspoken understanding, a tension that neither of us could ignore. It wasn't long before we had another encounter. Though this time I was a little more aware of the consequences. I was trying to avoid Chris, trying to keep some distance, but it wasn't that simple. He had a way of getting under my skin, making me feel things I wasn't used to feeling. So, when he knocked on my door one afternoon while Matt was at work, I knew I was in trouble. I opened the door, and there he was, standing there, smiling that easy smile of his, as if nothing had happened. As if we hadn't crossed a line just days earlier. It made my stomach twist in a way I didn't want to acknowledge. "Hey, I just wanted to check in on you," Chris said, his tone casual, but there was something about the way he said it that made my heart race. "You. Okay." I hesitated. Could I tell him the truth? Could I tell him how messed up I felt, how guilty I was, how much I wanted to rewind everything and pretend it never happened? Or maybe I just wanted to feel that spark again, the one that Matt and I had lost somewhere along the way. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just busy. You know, the usual." But Chris didn't seem convinced. He stepped inside, uninvited, and I didn't stop him. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I wanted to feel that rush again, even if it meant messing everything up. "I don't think you're fine," he said, his voice soft but insistent. "You've been avoiding me. I get it. But we don't have to pretend, okay?" I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he stepped closer, lowering his voice, "that I don't think we're done yet. You feel it too, don't you?" I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. I wanted to tell him to leave, to forget everything. But a part of me, a big part of me, didn't want him to go. So instead, I nodded slowly, my pulse quickening. And that's when he kissed me again. This time, it was different. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. I wanted this. I wanted him. And as I kissed him back, I could feel the weight of it all. The guilt, the betrayal, the fear of getting caught, crushing me. But still, I didn't stop. I couldn't. It was like a fire I couldn't put out. But as we pulled away from the kiss, the reality of what I was doing came crashing down. Chris, though, didn't seem to care. He just looked at me with this intensity. Like he was waiting for me to make the next move. "I shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I know," he said, his voice low, "but you want it too. Don't pretend you don't." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. All I knew was that I had crossed a point of no return. And no matter how many times I told myself it was a mistake, I couldn't erase what was happening. The next few days were a blur. Matt and I didn't talk much. I could tell he knew something was off, but he didn't ask any questions. He didn't need to. I was already feeling guilty enough without him confronting me. But then, one evening, things escalated. Matt had been working late again, and I found myself at home alone. Chris showed up at my door. This time, though, I knew what was about to happen. I didn't try to stop it. "I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice shaking as Chris walked into the living room. "I know," he replied softly, stepping closer to me. "But you're going to, anyway." And I did. We were about to kiss again when the door opened suddenly. I froze. Matt. He stood there, staring at us, his face pale with shock. I couldn't read his expression, but I didn't need to. The damage was done. "Is this really happening?" Matt asked quietly, his voice cracking. My heart stopped. I didn't know what to say. How could I explain this to him? How could I even begin to make sense of what had been happening? The silence in the room was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, my breath shallow, my chest tight. I had never felt this exposed, this raw, this caught in a lie. And there Matt stood, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time, his expression a mix of disbelief and hurt. Chris didn't move. He just stood there, awkwardly shifting his weight from foot to foot, clearly as stunned as I was. I wanted to scream at him to leave, to make it all go away. But I couldn't. I couldn't undo the mess I had made. Matt took a slow step inside the room, his eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't find the words to explain. What could I possibly say? Is this really happening? Matt asked again, his voice low and steady, but there was a tremor in it that I couldn't ignore. I could feel his pain, his confusion. And it tore me apart. I'm Matt, I'm so sorry, I whispered, but the words felt so small, so meaningless. This is all my fault. I don't know what happened. Chris finally spoke, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Matt, man, I'm sorry. This was never about hurting you. We? Don't? Matt cut him off, his voice sharp. I don't need to hear you apologize. You're not the one I'm angry with right now. I looked from Matt to Chris and then back to Matt. He was so calm, so collected on the outside, but I could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. This was real now. There was no going back. Matt shook his head slowly, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. You really couldn't even tell me, could you? You really couldn't even come to me, tell me you were unhappy, that things weren't working, that you needed more. Instead, you went behind my back. His voice cracked on the last words, and it felt like a knife to my chest. How long, Rachel? How long has this been going on? I felt like I was suffocating. How could I answer that? How could I explain that I didn't mean for any of this to happen? That I didn't wake up one day and think, hey, I'm gonna cheat on my husband today. It wasn't about that. It was about feeling seen, feeling wanted, feeling alive again. It wasn't that I didn't love Matt. I did, I really did. But somewhere along the way, we had lost each other. I never wanted to hurt you, Matt, I said, tears filling my eyes. I swear. I don't know what happened. I got lost. And Chris made me feel alive again. I know that's no excuse, but I never meant for it to go this far. Matt's eyes softened just a little, but the hurt was still there, still raw. How long, Rachel? He repeated, his voice almost pleading now. How long has this been going on? I swallowed, feeling my heart in my throat. Couple of weeks, I whispered. But it was just, I don't know. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Chris was still standing there, looking awkwardly between the two of us. I could tell he didn't know how to handle this, but honestly, neither did I. He opened his mouth to say something, but Matt didn't let him. I don't want to hear anything from you right now. Matt's voice was colder now, like he was shutting off completely. Rachel. I need to understand. Why him? I couldn't answer right away. It wasn't about Chris. It wasn't about him at all. It was about me. It was about us. And I had been so afraid to admit it, so afraid to face the fact that something was broken in our marriage, that I had been looking for something to fill that emptiness instead of trying to fix what was already here. I don't know, Matt, I said finally, the tears spilling over. I don't know why it was him. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, and I let it get out of control. I messed up. I messed up so badly. Matt's face was unreadable now. He didn't seem angry, not anymore. He just looked defeated. I didn't know what was worse. Anger would have been easier to deal with. But this quiet sadness in his eyes, it was unbearable. I don't even know who you are anymore, Matt said, shaking his head, the words coming out like a breath of air he had been holding in. This isn't who you are, Rachel. You're not the person I married. I couldn't look at him. I felt like I was disappearing in front of his eyes. I am sorry. I'm so sorry, Matt, I said, choking on the words. I never meant to hurt you. I swear, I never wanted to destroy what we had. Chris, who had been standing off to the side the entire time, finally spoke again. I think we both need to leave, he said quietly. Matt, I never wanted any of this. I'm sorry, man. Truly, I didn't know. Just leave, Matt interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. Both of you. Just go. There was nothing else to say. Chris left without another word, and I was left there with Matt. The weight of everything that had just happened crashing down on me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix this. I need time, Rachel, Matt said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't even look at you right now. I nodded. I understand if you need to go. Matt didn't move at first. Then, With a final look, he walked out, leaving me standing there, alone in the silence. The days after Matt left were a blur of silence and emptiness. I kept thinking it was all a bad dream. That he'd come home, and we'd sit down and talk it out. That I could somehow make it right. But every time I looked around the house, it felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. I tried to reach out to Matt, of course. I texted him, called him, left messages begging for a chance to talk. But he didn't respond. Not at first. I tried to keep my thoughts together, tried to go through the motions of daily life, but it was impossible. My mind kept drifting back to that moment when Matt had caught us. When everything had changed. It felt like I had lost him in that instant, and I didn't know how to get him back. I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and I had done. I couldn't stop thinking about how I had betrayed Matt, how I had destroyed something I thought was unbreakable. I knew I had been selfish. I had been looking for something outside of my marriage. Something to make me feel desired, something to fill the emptiness I had been ignoring for so long. But in doing that, I had hurt the one person who had always been there for me. I thought about what Chris had said that day when he kissed me. "You want this, don't you?" he had asked, and in that moment I did. I didn't want to admit it, but I had craved that attention, that spark, that feeling of being wanted again. I had let it cloud my judgment, and I had ruined everything. The guilt was unbearable. Every moment without Matt felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I was consumed by it, by the realization of what I had done. I didn't even know if I could fix this, if there was any way to get back to the way things were. But I knew I had to try. I had to at least try to make it right. A few days later, Matt finally reached out. It was a short message, just a text, but it was something. "We need to talk. Meet me at the park tomorrow, 10 a.m. I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't know what to expect, but I was scared out of my mind. Would he yell at me? Would he tell me it was over? Or would he give me a chance to explain? I spent the whole night preparing for the conversation, replaying everything in my head over and over again. I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering if I was even deserving of his forgiveness. I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to face him, no matter what happened. The next morning, I met him at the park as agreed. My heart was racing when I saw him standing there, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his jacket. He looked different, distant, colder, like the person I had known was now a stranger. I took a deep breath before walking up to him. "Matt," I said softly, my voice shaky. "I'm so sorry." He didn't look at me at first. He just stared straight ahead. There was a long pause before he finally spoke. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Rachel," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." I felt the sting of those words like a slap. I wanted to tell him that I regretted everything, that I wished I could take it all back, but I didn't say anything. He needed space, and I couldn't push him. "I don't blame you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I know I've ruined everything. I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I was lost, and I made a terrible mistake. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am." He turned to face me then, his eyes searching mine, and for a brief moment, I saw the old Matt again. The one who had always been there for me, who had loved me unconditionally. But it was only for a moment. His face hardened again, and I knew the hurt was still there, still fresh. "I don't know if I can get past this," he said, his voice tight. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Trust was a huge part of any relationship, and I had shattered it. I knew it, and now I was left wondering if there was any way to rebuild it. "Understand," I said quietly. "I don't expect things to be okay right away. I just want you to know that I love you. I don't want to lose you." There was another long pause, and I could see the battle within him. I could see the anger, the hurt, the disappointment. But there was something else too, something softer, something that told me he wasn't ready to completely give up on us yet. "I need time, Rachel," Matt said finally, his voice low but firm. "I can't just forget this. I can't pretend like it didn't happen. But I also don't want to throw everything away just yet." My heart surged with hope, but I knew it wasn't a guarantee. It was just a small crack in the door, and I would have to work my hardest to earn his trust back. It wouldn't be easy. It might take months, maybe even years. But I was willing to try. I had to try. "I'll wait," I said, my voice steady now. "I'll wait however long it takes. I won't give up on us, Matt. I love you." He nodded, though his expression remained guarded. I don't know what will happen, he said, his voice quiet. But I'm not ready to make any decisions right now. I need time. I understand, I said again, and for the first time in days, I felt a little bit of relief. The pain was still there, and the road ahead was uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. Matt turned to walk away, and I stayed where I was, watching him go. My heart was heavy, but there was a flicker of hope in the distance. Maybe things could be fixed. Maybe, after all the mistakes I had made, there was still a chance.